Let's get this party started.
Let's get this
Whoop,
party
whoop.
started. Unst, 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 unst.
Okay. Welcome to Pros Talking Pros. I am Stacey. This is Troy, and we are here to talk to you about just whatever is on our mind. But today specifically, we're going to talk about diversity without being subject to the trends that kind of tend to take hold of our hearts and our minds and throw us down rabbit holes that we don't want to be down. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm really excited about this topic. We were hoping to hit it last week, but we didn't, because it was something I wanted to do a little more research on and kind of like clear out my mind and my brain. I'm kind of hoping that helped Troy out as well, because I have a feeling, folks, that we might get some rants today. we
It's
might.
possible.
It's
It's
possible.
possible.
It's possible.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this goes with Mr. Troy today. But I do want to say a happy fourth. It's going to be belated by the time you guys hear this podcast, but happy fourth to everybody. Thank you, veterans, for your service. And you know, we're really grateful for our freedoms in this country. So thank you very much. And hopefully nobody, starts any wildfires. We're into wildfire season here in Idaho, and it's pretty ugly already. So
Yeah, it
hopefully we
is.
don't have too much stuff take over the world and we all end up evacuating homes this summer. We don't want that. Okay, so just if you haven't already, like, subscribe. Troy and I, we talk about all things writing and authorship and author business. So if you're interested in learning more about what you can do to be a successful author, you're in the right place. We're going to talk about all kinds of things in this channel, but this is kind of what we do here. And so, just if you have any questions or you want us to hit specific topics, please let us know what those interests are. We're happy to hit those topics for you. So let's just dive in, Troy. What do you say? What do you say? What do you say?
Oh man, this is the hardest thing about this is it's such a hot button topic, and almost any side that you land on, someone is going to not like what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm okay. I was on mute on purpose. My
You were
dogs
on
were,
mute on
yeah, I was
purpose.
yelling at my
Oh,
dogs.
okay. I was like, I saw your lips moving, and I'm like, what in the world is going
I
on?
was miming.
Ah,
I'm in a
I
box.
gotcha.
I'm in a
I'm in a
box.
box. Yeah. And I mean,
Anyway,
anyway,
so
okay,
yeah,
so
this is
this
a
is such a
top.
hot button topic that,
Yeah,
like, no matter what side you come down on, somebody's going to be mad at you probably for something that you said. So I just want to preface this by saying what we're tackling here is as much as possible, does DEI and all of this stuff from the writing and publishing perspective,
perspective. Hmm.
not from your personal beliefs or my personal beliefs perspective, or saying anything about any particular group or any particular inclusion policy you might have, or whatever the case may be. I think that these things is that they do have a place, but they need to be handled carefully, because sometimes the end result is the opposite of what we're looking for when we're trying to be inclusive. And that is extremely frustrating for people who are a part of marginalized groups. It's extremely frustrating for you as an author if you feel like you're trying to do the right thing and you end up not doing the right thing, things like that. So there's all kinds of, like, dangerous territory we're wading into here. I just want to let everybody know that we're aware of that. Hopefully, we don't step on our tongues too much in this particular episode, but we want to give you the reality of the landscape and the way, to a certain extent, the way things have evolved and the way things are moving in this area. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
And just so you know, this is not about politics, religion. Like Troy said, it's
Nope.
not about being inclusive and bigoted. This is not what this is. This is, like, Troy and I one of the things that I take great pride in when I'm editing is making sure that I'm setting my biases aside, understanding fully that I have biases. But I do my level best to set those biases aside when I'm editing. And in this particular instance, and you can look at my what is it, like my portfolio, you could see that I have a whole gamut. I run a gamut of different kinds of people with different kinds of um, belief systems and political views, and none of them in my perspective, in my viewpoint, is somebody that I think of less than any of the others. I mean, I love every single one of my clients, and they all have a beautiful perspective, and I don't want people to think that because we're saying these things that it's because we have personal biases that we're putting out there. That's not what this is about. This is more or less just about the industry as a whole and how to approach, like Troy said, your writing process. So just understand that going in. But if you're going to get hot under the collar and you want to yell at us, go, feel free. Those help out the algorithm as well. Go ahead and type those into the comments, guys. Vincent, I'm ready for your snarky comments. Anyway. So anyway, I've got kind of an outline here. We can start with that just so we can kind of like stay on point so we don't go off too much on a tangent. But the first thing I kind of want to talk about is when to diversity in your books. So when do you think, Troy, you should include diversity in your books? When is it a good time, and when is the right time to do that?
This is I'm going to lay the groundwork, but this is my personal opinion, and opinions, your mileage may vary, and your opinion may be different. But in my opinion, when it fits the story, and when it
Exactly.
is part of the story, when it is the characters. And one of my stories I'm working on right now that has a gay relationship. Two gay guys are a part of this particular story, and it's just a relationship, right? And the reason it's appropriate in this case is because that's who the characters are. That's how they came to me, is they are two gay gentlemen in a relationship. Okay? It's not saying anything about, I am not homosexual myself. So I don't, but I do understand the community because I have a lot of friends who are in homosexual relationships. That is
Mm-hmm.
because I love all my friends. And I don't care what
Mm-hmm.
their relationships are like. Relationships are relationships, right? So, um, but the reason they're in the story is because they belong in the story, and because that's a part of the story and a part of the plot. I'm not putting them in there in the story, putting a gay couple in my story so I can rank better in the gay algorithm, right? That's not, or sell more to people, to those of my fans who are gay, or not, because there are those of my fans, I'm sure, that are going to object to a male-male relationship in one of my stories. Okay, that's fine too, because the truth is it just belongs in the story. So the time the one of the biggest dangers of this is, like you mentioned, earlier, is tokenism, kind of putting things in because, well, then I'll win these fans, or this is what people are looking for, or whatever. And that's bad. That's the wrong reason. The reason to be inclusive in a story is because that is the story. That's a part of the story. It's a vital part of the story.
Yeah. I mean, specifically when it fits into your story world, if it's a geographic issue, if it's a cultural issue, that's when you want to do it. When the character background matters, or when it's going
Hmm.
to add or strengthen the theme or the conflict, that's when you add those kinds of characters or those situations in there. And when you're writing outside your lane for a purpose, which
Hmm.
sometimes that also plays in, if you have a marginalized identity specifically to meet a certain um to meet a certain objective or theme, like I said, in your story, then that's when
Hmm.
you would inject that. You're not doing it, like you said, just to have that token gay in your story. And that is unfortunately something that kind of seems to be trending right now. because people
It
think that it
is.
has to be there. And that's kind of what DEI was. It's just, oh, well, we have to have a Black character. We have to have a gay character. We have to have a Hispanic character. And honestly, what it is it's almost demoralizing and demeaning. It's it does it such an injustice to the people that are behind those cultures and those identities. Like it serves no purpose except to just be that, the dog that
Well,
dies. It doesn't
and
do
I mean,
anything.
let I mean, to just be brutally frank about it for a minute, is
Hmm.
much of it is a non-marginalized writer. We'll just say a white male writer trying for whatever reason to insert this gratuitous character into their fiction so that it can diminish somehow who they are, like hiding who they are. Like,
Right.
look, I'm a white heterosexual aging male. Okay, that
Hmm.
makes me there's a certain amount of privilege that I've had in my life that I fully understand because of those facts alone,
Right.
right? So, but for me to write a story where I'm throwing in some marginalized group or marginalized character just so that readers feel better about my story is
Hmm.
the absolute horrible wrong answer, because what it really is me trying to make myself feel better and less guilty about whatever it is that whatever privilege that I've had in my life. Look, just like someone else was born with, something marginalized, I was born into a certain amount of privilege, even though fairly poor upbringing, all that kind of stuff. But we don't, I
Hmm.
mean, all that stuff doesn't matter, because the truth is that's the reality. Some people have privileges that other people do not. And
Hmm.
we know as a society that that is not right. We should work towards being as equal as we possibly can be. But there's only so many things that in reality that we can do, and
Or that are
denying your own
under your control even.
that are under your control. So denying what you actually like, who you actually are,
Hmm.
or trying to somehow soften that or hide that, is just as bad and gratuitous as if you called that marginalized person by a derogatory name.
Exactly.
It's the exact same thing, because and then we can get into cultural misappropriation and all that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
where you're taking on things from a culture that is not yours, but you're doing it because, not because you really care, not because you want to actually serve this group or anything like that, or because this is actually your genuine story, but because you're just trying to like throw somebody a bone, throw a token in there. That's just terrible. It's just terrible, and it's going to come through in your writing, and people are going to know that's exactly what you did.
Right. Exactly. So there is a way to do this without being performative, right? There is a way
Hmm.
to tackle this particular issue, because yes, it does, like I said, serve a purpose in some situations. And for your story, it does. In my story, when I'm writing, like I'm forever writing this dark comedy about my mother-in-law. There are many, many different characters in that story. It's based on a true story. I want people to understand that my husband's family is very eclectic, and there are several lesbian and gay couples in our family that I will be including in my story because they're a big part of this amazing family that I am married into. And I'm not just throwing them in there, but there's a way to do it in such a way that I'm not going to be, again, doing them a disservice, or making it seem like I'm being inappropriate or disrespectful to their beliefs or their identities. So, one of the first things I would say is to avoid the diversity grab bag. Avoid just, oh,
Yes.
okay. Avoid just going in there and say, well, I need a different character in here. Let's make them Black, just because. So tossing in a rainbow of characters just to, serve this diversity, like DEI like quota is not the way to approach that. that issue. So it comes off very, very shallow when you do something like that. So could you come up with any other reasons, other things that how would you insert those types of characters? What is your process?
Basically, the insertion, like for me, the insertion of diverse characters is because often my characters are loosely or somewhat based on people that I've
Oh, I
known in my
know.
life,
Hmm.
right? So if you have that type of diversity, sorry, I'm getting a phone call. So if you have that type of diversity in your life, then you know
Yep.
those characters, those type of people.
Right.
So like there's a guy in my Solitaire series that is a gambler, and he's an African American dude, and he dresses all flashy because it's a distraction for the people so that he can count cards and do all these things because it's, that's how he makes his living. Well, I have known more than one character like that in my
Hmm.
life that are like, they are literally flashy con men because that's what they do for a living. And it's crazy. I mean, they're amazing. They're really strange people, but amazing people. And some of them have been really good friends of mine. I've known a lot of people through my military experience and stuff like that of
Hmm.
tons of different ethnicities, and some of them are just characters. I mean,
So there you go.
they're just
That's it.
characters.
They're just let your
So
characters just be then. So this is the thing that I was going to say is that like part these things that this kind of goes back to what we talked about a couple weeks ago where we were talking about our, our mental,
yes,
crutches that we have where we're like we don't want to make those our identity. They're not who we are. They're just what we have. And it's the same thing.
it's
You're a white dude, but you're Troy. Like that is not your
yeah,
identity. So when you're
yeah.
writing these characters, just let them be. Let them
Let
be
them
their
be who they
characters.
are. Because
Exactly.
that's the key is if your characters are written in a genuine way, then people will relate to them regardless of
Regardless
where
of
they
what.
fall on the
Yeah,
DEI spectrum, right? If
right.
they're relatable characters, they're relatable characters. One of the dangers is if you have lived a very isolated life and you do not know people who are part of these groups, writing them into your fiction may be extremely challenging. And
Hmm.
it may be that you need to go, if you really want to include them in your fiction, you may need to go have some deep conversations with some people and find out some things about how they feel, how they live, how they feel when someone writes a character like them into a story. What are they looking for? Because there are rules for a while. So Hollywood for a while did this tokenism thing where like on some of these murder shows and things like that, they would throw in a gay character from time to time, but they didn't want to have
Hmm.
to write a constant gay character, so they would do what was called killing the gays. The gay would come on, and they would become a victim, right? And a lot of times they were a victim because of being gay. Well, so what Hollywood's trying to do is show that the gays are being persecuted or that they're being mistreated in the country or
Hmm.
whatever. But what they're really doing is every gay character that appears on a television show dies. So the people in the LGBTQ community were like, hey, wait a minute. First of all, we're not all persecuted in this terrible situation. And
Right.
second of all, stop killing us on television. Like, just stop doing it.
Stop.
So it
Yeah, because
became
I
a kind
mean
of a
that was the
rule
joke
in
for a long
Hollywood, like you
time.
can't kill the gay character.
Well, remember
Don't
they were
make the
doing that
gay
with
character the victim. Yeah.
black characters for a long time in horror movies.
In
It'd
the
be like,
70s.
yeah, I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
oh, there's the black guy. He's gonna die first. And sure enough, I mean, it was like the
Yeah.
red shirt, yellow shirt rule on
Or
Star
he's the
Trek.
criminal. Or
Yeah.
he's the criminal, right?
Or
And
he's the
so
criminal.
they're
Hmm.
in inclusion, they're stereotyping, right? And
Hmm.
this is the other mistake that people make is they create a stereotype and a reality in their story
Hmm.
world that is not
Not
coherent with
reality.
reality,
Yeah,
right? It is not connected to the way people actually live, right? And the
exactly.
way they actually are. So this is like if you don't know these people, then you don't know things about their lifestyle and about their lives. So don't write them. This is a case where write what you know is
So this,
a
yeah,
valid argument,
this
but
is
it doesn't mean you
doing,
have to be a part of the community, but you need to know
do your research.
the people in the
Mm-hmm.
community. You need to understand them and who
Mm-hmm.
they are and what their lives are actually like.
Right.
So,
So yeah, that's my number two on this list is to give characters a full non non-stereotypical life, because the stereotypes are really where you're going to get in trouble. One of the
mhm.
things I really loved, and I told you this a couple weeks ago, is I saw this thing on a reel. It was really great. It was I loved Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was one of my favorite actor comics. He was brilliant. But there was a conversation that he had with a well-known writer reporter, and I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put it in here because it was so good. But this writer reporter was basically kind of making this stereotypical, like, you know, comment to Richard Pryor about, like, well, I could write a black character in my books, all I have to
Oh
do is
yeah,
throw in
yeah.
some ghetto speech. And it was so funny because Richard Pryor was like, what are you trying to say? Like,
Can white writers write for you? You know what I mean?
If they write for the human being in me, yes. If they write,
Right.
if they try to write for some idea they have of what I would be as a black person, they usually cannot do that.
Can you tell when you get a page of dialogue that they have a tin ear for what you sound like?
Yeah, I think if they just write, if I get a script just of a person, I can understand it a lot better than someone saying, and he's black, and he has all this, and you read it, it makes you sick. When they write like that. And I would prefer they didn't, for me.
What would be a case of somebody trying to sound black? Could you give an example?
I know they don't mean any harm, but they don't realize how ignorant it is, and trying to have that black voice that some whites try to do, that really don't do well.
Like, why you jive turkey?
Yeah.
oh, funny.
Yeah.
Because he was like calling him on it. And the guy was like, well, yeah, all I'd have to do. And he's like what? And Richard Pryor was making a point, and that is, that has nothing to do with my life. That is not the life of a black person. That is a stereotype. It is crazy to me how people will do that. They'll throw in like
Hmm.
nuances that are stereotypical and think, okay, well, I've got him in there then.
And
And
think it's,
and
well,
think
yeah, they
it's
think it's
they
okay.
think it's authentic, or they think it's real, and
Yeah, they think
not
it's,
realizing it's not even close.
oh
And it's
yeah.
and it avoids that, letting your characters just be who they are.
Well,
It's
yeah. And it also avoids understanding someone else and their culture.
right.
Basically, I'm
Exactly.
like, okay, so I've seen this stereotype on TV, so I'm going to throw it in there.
So I'm going to
I
throw it
mean,
in
I
there.
love the thing that, like, because in reality, the way it should be is like one of the clips that I love is Morgan Freeman on 60 Minutes,
Oh yeah,
where the
I love
guy's
that
like,
interview.
you want a Black History, you don't want a Black History Month. He said, no,
He's like,
when's White
no.
History Month? Black history is just history, you
Yeah.
know?
Quit
Um,
making it
it,
about the color.
African American culture is just African American culture. Hispanic culture is just Hispanic culture, which, by the way, I love Hispanic culture because I love to eat, and those
Oh my
people can
gosh.
make some
Those
food. Anyway, so,
me
but
too.
I mean, I knew this gal. Little aside, this little Troy life thing. So when I was like 19, I was 18, yeah, I was working in a deli in a grocery store, and there was this gal there. Her name was Eileen. She was like 5'9", weighed like 310. No, not
Oh
five
wow.
nine, probably like 5'4", weighed 310, 320. Would have married her in a heartbeat. The woman could cook. People would come to get her enchiladas like from way out in the valley to this
Mm-hmm.
particular grocery store just to get her cooking. She was
Mm-hmm.
absolutely amazing. Now that's kind of a stereotype that the Hispanic mamacitas can cook.
Cook.
That's one you can lean into a little bit because boy can they most of the
Well, it's
time.
cultural.
You
It's
know,
part of their, it's
but yeah, it's a
yeah.
part of their culture. So
But
there's
But I
Yes.
know a guy he's Mexican, but he was raised in like Arco, Idaho, doesn't speak a lick of Spanish, and can't cook worth beans. So like,
Oh yeah.
and he's Mexican, full blood. So you kind
Hmm.
of have to go be careful. Be
Well, yeah,
careful.
because and part of making characters sometimes is making them not fit the stereotype
Yeah, which is even
and
more great.
breaking that on purpose. But in order to do that, you need to know how that actually works in their culture and how someone breaks from their culture and becomes something unique, right?
Right.
And so it's really important to understand, like the guy from Arco, Idaho, like maybe his grandparents went there as migrant farm workers because there's a lot
Mhm.
of migrant farm workers at the sheep farms out in the area,
Yep.
and he was raised in the city. Maybe his dad got a job at the nuclear power plant site or whatever,
Yep. Whatever.
and never looked back. And they
Yeah.
didn't speak Spanish at home because I know more than one Spanish family who does not speak Spanish at home
Right.
because they want their kids to learn English, right?
Right.
So there's reasons for that. Well, understand that culture, understand
Hmm.
where they came from. I also know another Hispanic guy who came over, went to high school in the United States in California, and when he first started high school, couldn't speak English at all.
Hmm.
And by the end of it, he was speaking English fluently, went to college, and became a police officer in Utah. Amazing guy, incredible story, but his story is completely different than other people's story. So
Yeah.
know your character's story and who
It's kind
they
of like
are.
it's kind of
But
like
I mean,
Henry Cho.
oh,
Do you know Henry Cho? He's
oh
so
yeah,
funny. He's
he's
from
great.
Texas, and
Yeah.
he's Korean, and he gets up and the first thing he's like says is like, y'all didn't expect me to sound like this, did you?
Yeah.
Just he leans into that like Texas accent that he has and the very Korean look he carries
Appearance
and
that
his
he
appearance,
has.
and like, and
Yeah.
it's just, he made it funny. It's one of those things, like, you have to, but he knows that that's something he can lean into, and that is something, like, if you're doing that in a book, do it, but like Troy said, no, do your research so you understand, because Henry Cho, the reason he can make that work is because he knows the stereotypes.
Well, and here's the thing is understand if you do that in a book that you need to really, if you are not a part of that group, then you make your characters so authentically a part of that group that we believe it's okay for them to make fun of themselves. Don't
Right.
make fun of a group even in a joke, because part
Right.
of the reason that Henry Cho can do that joke in a
He is
Texas
Korean.
accent because he is Korean,
Hmm.
right? Your characters need to be genuine first. And
Right.
whatever and whoever and whatever they are is what they are.
Right.
And don't make it weird. Don't make it weird. I mean,
I'm so
because
sorry.
I've read some stuff that people have turned into publishers that have turned into me to edit where they make it weird. And I know you're trying. I understand you're trying. And here's another thing, okay?
Hmm.
Don't tell us that your character is gay.
Oh
Don't
yeah.
tell us that your character is a lesbian.
Just
Don't
make it
tell
just
us
make it
that they're
them.
African American or whatever. Show us.
Yeah.
So the way
Just let
you
them
introduce two
be.
gay, a gay relationship in your story, you know how you introduce it? The guy comes in and introduces his boyfriend or his
Right.
husband. Boom. We
There you
know the lay
go.
of the land. You don't say Joe, the
The
gay
gay
guy
guy.
in the purple whatever. No, stop that.
Yeah.
Stop that. Because the other thing is you don't know by appearance.
Right.
Like you do not know by
Right.
appearance. And so stop that too. Stop
Right.
trying to make them seem like a certain appearance is no. No,
And
no.
this leans
Stop
into
it.
the skill of show don't tell, because
Hmm.
you need to learn how to do that. This is very much I mean, this is one of those things that you're going to have to learn how to do, and it does take practice. Troy often says, and I totally agree with this, but your first book is probably not always going to be the book that you publish. You have to
Hmm.
know that, which is probably one of the reasons why I have not yet finished my book. But it's definitely one of those things where you just have to know that is that is something you have to do. Like, is practice, practice, practice.
Mhm.
And then one of the other things I would really love to point out in terms of like the how to do this authentically is don't make the diverse or the culturally diverse character the teachable moment. Like, don't make
Oh,
them the
no,
only
please.
to teach a theme or to like to educate your protagonist in some way or another. Like, that is almost as offensive as misrepresenting that culture or that diverse character.
Yes.
I would say quit
Mm.
highlighting it for that reason. It is very much, again, one of those things where they would, like, the token gay guy was getting killed or the black guy was getting, just it's just as bad as that. Don't do
Yes.
it.
Don't have your main character or one of your characters or whatever be an extremely bigoted person and learn from that person that,
Right.
oh, these people are just like me.
Mm-hmm.
Garbage. And I mean, I'm just going to say about all of this is if you can't do it well,
Don't do
don't
it.
do it. Don't
Mm-hmm.
do it at all if you can't do it well. The reason is, I mean, this can be a career-ending thing
Right.
by doing it wrong. Like it or not, cancel culture in this world and in this country in particular is real.
Right.
Okay. You mess it up and the wrong person gets a hold of your book, and you can literally just kiss your
It'll
writing career goodbye, at
tank
least
you.
under that name. And
Yeah.
you can write under a pen name, but God forbid somebody finds out that you are actually that
The other
person who
guy.
did that
Yeah.
thing, because there will be suffering. Okay,
Right.
so don't, if you can't do it well, then don't do it, because there are plenty of readers who want to read fiction that is just about whatever
People.
group you're a part of, just
Mm-hmm.
about people. So, or dogs or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
just if you can't write something well, don't write it, or at least if you're going to write it, don't publish it until you can do it well,
Right.
because that's just your fair warning. This is the way things work. This is life, right? So,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
So there are some things that people have done, like this leans into this, but that have gone over the top, that are over the top woke. Um, what would you consider some of the over the top, you know, type things that people have done? What are some things that you've seen?
So I had a guy who submitted a book to me, and one of the characters, the side characters, was lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the book, I was like, if he says something about his lesbian friend one more time, because we don't talk about our friends that way.
Nope.
You don't introduce your friend. This is my lesbian friend, Jen. No, you don't do that. This is my friend, Jen. It doesn't matter. You don't label her especially every time you freaking introduce them. It was like he was just trying so hard to be inclusive.
Look, look at
Look,
my gay
look,
friend.
I have a token lesbian friend in my book. Look,
I'm not a
this is
bigot.
Jen.
Here's my gay
Jen
friend.
is a lesbian, right? And I'm like, oh, please, for the love of all that is
Stop.
holy, stop. Because
Yeah.
all we needed was for Jen to be a legitimate,
Just a person.
real person who happens to be a lesbian. The other part is, like, when we're saying show, don't tell, okay, the majority of the time, if you're not writing a steamy romance, we don't need a bedroom scene to prove your point. First of all, if you're not part of the
Oh
group, you
yeah.
probably don't know how to write that bedroom scene.
Yeah.
So please don't try.
It's one of the reasons
Um,
why I
and
don't edit the
don't
LGBTQ
rely
stuff.
on any depiction of that you might see
Yeah.
through an internet search of some sort. Okay.
Yeah.
It's more than likely inaccurate. It's like them saying that, heterosexual sex happens when the pizza delivery guy shows up and he's very handsome
On
and gets
Saturdays.
invited and gets to deliver more than, whatever.
Bow, chicka,
Umst,
bow,
umst,
wow.
ow, wow. No, that is not reality, right? If you, I mean,
So good.
I don't even know how to say that. Okay, if you have friends who are part of the LGBTQ community, if you want to get them to go off on a huge rant, just talk to them about the depictions of them in certain genres of material, right?
Yeah.
And they will tell you that there are some extremely inaccurate things there, right? That it's just not how things work.
Right.
Okay. So if you don't know about it, don't write
Don't
it.
write about it.
Okay. We don't need these false depictions and stereotypical things that are just not true. Right?
Right.
Just don't do it. If you don't know about
Right.
it, don't do it. Don't
Right.
include it in your fiction. It's
So
just that
yeah,
anyway,
that's what
just a
I
bad
was going to
idea.
say is calling attention to somebody in every scene is just probably your very worst thing. Um, but I was also going to say the on the nose soapbox moments, just the
Oh,
characters reciting something from Twitter in a sentence, like it's it's so unrealistic and it pulls people right out of the story. They're gonna not you create an unbelievable moment instantly. So you don't want to create these stereotypical, like very specific, um, oh, obvious on the nose type moments. One of the things that I find, and this honestly doesn't just speak to this topic. In my opinion, it really is something that a lot of newbie authors will do. And they tend to do this a lot, is they'll say, well, this is my theme. Did you notice that I just set this up? Like, did you see all
hmm
these Easter eggs that led to this moment? I just told you this is what's happening. And it's like, if you do that, immediately people were going to close the book and go, I'm not an idiot. And they're going to toss your book.
Yeah.
You have to understand your readers are intelligent beings. If they're reading your book, they've probably read more than one book. And if they're taking a chance on your book, the most likely indie author in the room, they're betting that you have written something that's intelligent and will speak to them intelligently. So don't
hmm
take that moment for granted by giving them see what I did there? Because it's just gonna make everybody mad.
hmm
So don't do that. Don't do those soapbox moments where you feel like you have to stand
hmm
up and say, my Black character just now was accepted by his white friends because, like that is just dumb.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's not just this topic either. It's
yeah,
essentially the message. The message of your book should, if there is a message and there is a theme, which there should be, but
there
if
should
there's
be.
some kind of a message or a theme, that should be just woven through the book and woven through the
Exactly.
prose. We don't need the moments of, there's a couple different moments that people insert in their books. One of them is called the, Bob moment. And the Bob moment is when one character explains to the other
The other
character
character.
exactly what's really been going on the entire time throughout the book. It's garbage. Okay, don't
The
do it.
the the
The other
listeners of
moment
our
is the preacher moment. Well,
oh yeah,
somebody literally or figuratively just steps onto a
preaches.
soapbox and shares a message with everyone that's from the author, apparently, which is their equivalent of God. And they're,
Mhm.
presenting this prophecy or whatever it is. Even if you're writing a book that has those type of things in it, that's not the way to present that information. You
Right.
show it to us, don't tell us again. And so avoid those moments because first of all, they're extremely distracting with the story. And second of all, it just follows one of the rules of if you have a message to deliver, you just want to deliver a message, get a pulpit, build a church.
Yeah.
If you have a story to tell that has a message in it, tell the story.
Tell the story.
Don't
Yeah.
don't try to mix those two things. This is especially for you Christian fiction authors out
Mm,
there. Um, and because I have edited more than one of these books where literally at some point someone just stops at everything that they're doing, usually in a very tense moment, and shares the gospel. or shares whatever religious beliefs, and this isn't a fiction book. Okay.
Yeah.
No, no. First of all, if you're writing Christian fiction, the majority of people are going to pick it up are Christians.
You're preaching to the choir. Don't do
So
it.
you're preaching to the choir. You're not winning anyone over by throwing a gospel message in the middle of your book. And you're irritating the average reader who picked it up because they thought looks like a pretty cool thriller. And they get to that part and they're like, what in the world is this? And they know what it is. And they know exactly what you're doing. If you want to weave religion, just like anything else we're talking about with DEI, if you want to weave that into your story, make it a genuine part of your story.
Mhm.
As many of you know, because I say it all the time, one of my favorite books is A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving.
Mhm.
Is it a religious book? No. Is there religion in there? Yep. Are you
Mhm.
going to learn something when you read through that book? Yep. Is there a definite message? Yep. Is there ever a moment when there's one of those soapbox moments? Nope,
Mhm.
there is not. So that's if you want an example of how to do that, that's the way to do it, right? It doesn't matter. John Irving has another book that's called In One Person about a trans person, and it is absolutely fantastic.
Mhm.
Absolutely fantastic. And for the exact same reason, we never get this thing of this preachy, soapboxy type moment. And he never
Oh,
asks you to either accept or deny whether someone being trans is good or bad. He just presents it as the thing that happened.
if we want to talk about some amazing books that weave in diversity without doing these things we're talking about, I think To Kill a Mockingbird is one of the most iconic
Mhm.
classics that you can call on as far as that's concerned. You've got
Mhm.
all kinds of diverse characters in there, from white trash to the black community to the pompous lawyers, and all of them are busting stereotypes. But what's really amazing about that is, like you said, there's no soapbox moment where you've got Atticus Finch telling everybody, now, this was wrong. This guy killed himself because of
Mhm.
you people and your bigotry. He never had to. You never had to. And
Mhm.
honestly, if you could erase all of the cultural parts of those characters and still have the very same story.
Characters.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So
But
that's why that is
yeah.
such a powerful story. And again, it teaches a lesson. It does teach us about ourselves, and it teaches us about human nature in a lot of ways, but it doesn't have that soapbox moment. It doesn't teach you in this
Mhm.
very literal, like, oh, did you not pick up on my message? Harper
Yeah,
did a good
exactly.
job. She did a good
Yeah,
job
which is why that book gets banned all the time.
all the
It's,
time
it's
because people
And a
have
lot of
no
books
clue.
that do get banned, the reason is because people have biases, and when they read those books, they feel uncomfortable. But
You
part of
should.
what fiction should do is make you feel a little
Okay.
uncomfortable.
If it makes you
We
uncomfortable,
need,
you
for
have to
the
ask
love of all
yourself,
that is holy, yeah, get out of your comfort zone.
yeah, like
But whether you do
ask
that through
yourself, why
fiction
is this
or real
making me
life
uncomfortable?
or both, figure it out.
Right.
If something makes you uncomfortable, figure out why it makes you uncomfortable.
Why is it
The
making you
movie
uncomfortable?
Doubt, which I've mentioned a couple times, is one of
Mm-hmm.
those things that it ends on this moment of like, and the movie Crash, both of
Mm-hmm.
them, some of my favorite movies, because the ending ends with you feeling very uncomfortable about yourself
Mm-hmm.
because the characters feel very uncomfortable about themselves. And you're
Mm-hmm.
looking inside going, do I have some of that
Do I?
in
Yeah.
me?
Am I the problem?
And
Yeah.
maybe you do,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And if you do, well, okay, then what are you going to do about it? But that, I mean, the point of the point of all of those was to tell a story.
Right.
The point was not to get you to feel, but in the end, the writer ended with an uncomfortable feeling ending because you should feel uncomfortable at that moment because that's what happened in the story. That's what the characters brought them to. That's what the point of the fiction was, right? So if you can skillfully do that, my goodness, please go forth and do that. We need more stories like that. But doing things gratuitously is not going to get you that ending. There were biases displayed by every person in the movie Crash. There were ethnic differences, all kinds of different characters, and we saw the stereotypes as we went through and saw how each character reacted to them, and then come to a very uncomfortable ending of, did anything really change? Or did all those biases just survive the whole story? Well, okay, awesome. That is fantastic. Well done. But the gratuitous stuff, there's nothing gratuitous. There's not a soapbox moment in there. And there's really, if you go back, if you've seen this before, go back and watch it again, because there's one central character throughout the whole story. You're like, there's 4 different stories and they all weave. Nope, there's one central character throughout all of the stories. And that's the person who has the most change. Anyway,
Wow.
so.
Wow. Well, good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So like I said before, this is going to take some practice. So don't think that because you aren't able to accomplish this in your first try, that you're not going to be able to one day accomplish this. Understand and know that this comes with practice over time. If you don't know how to do it right now, it's okay. Just keep working at it. But don't, if you feel the need to kind of explain, that's always a good time to go, okay, I'm explaining here. I need to back off and figure out a better way to tell this, and make sure that your story and your characters are deep enough that they're conveying that message without having to have this dialogue or this monologue at the end of your story that says, hey, everybody, look at what I'm doing. Okay. And then the final over the top one that I want to bring up is shallow stereotypes that are like under this guise of inclusion. Like, look at what I'm including because I have this very effeminate guy that dresses flamboyantly, and so therefore I've got my gay in. So the fiery Latina, the mysterious Black friend who's a little ghetto, like, get over it. Like, don't do it. They're like Troy and I said, they're over the top, they're cliche at this point. And in this day and age, they're offensive. So they're offensive to not just, those stereotypes and those people. It's not just offensive to them, but it's offensive to people who aren't even in that culture. It's just again, we're kind of evolving as a society into a society that is inclusive without being, without calling to attention those differences. The point is with Morgan Freeman saying what he said, and the gay culture that has like kind of got a surgence right now of people saying, stop pointing it out. Like, we're just the same as everybody else. Like, the point is that we're just, like I said earlier, just letting your characters be. Let them be the people that they are. I have red hair. Does that mean I'm a soul-sucking devil child? No, I'm just a redhead.
No.
Yeah,
that's what I meant to say.
So, yeah. I mean, not as red as I used to be, but I'm a redhead that just happens, I'm a person that happens to have red hair. And it's one of those things that I think a lot of people have over time, tried to help all of us as a society understand and know. This is one of the reasons why I love books so much, is because each book, like we said, is supposed to help us call into question our flaws and make us better people. These perspectives that we write, these things that we share, they're there so that we can understand points of view and ways of life that we maybe not would have been exposed to had we not picked up the book. So it's important for you to understand when you're writing these things that you're more than anything helping people see perspectives. That is what we're trying to say, is that everybody is just living their life and trying to do so in a very complex, convoluted, strange world that happens to us a lot of times because of people and other actions. And we can be better as we can work on ourselves and be better as we grow and learn and open ourselves and open our minds to these other perspectives and understandings. And that's the beautiful thing about books. So when you're writing people, write people. Don't write these ideas or these, these cliched, awful, stereotypical tokens that you think were going to get you more views or more likes or more, because it's actually can play against you, like Troy said, and it could actually kick you in the butt and get you kicked out altogether if you do it wrong. So, yeah. So do you have any final thoughts on that?
Last final thought is be really careful with sarcasm in this area. Sarcasm and humor. Because the danger of sarcasm is that not everybody gets it. I mean, that's the danger, is not everybody gets it. Not everybody understands that it's sarcasm or humor. And if the wrong person doesn't get it, you can be in real, real trouble. So don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm probably the worst at sarcasm. We were actually just talking about this. Was it you and me that we were talking about sarcasm? Yeah, because there's a book that we're working on together that has a little bit of that sarcasm in it, and trying to walk that fine line. It's really difficult to do in a book. So, understand and know that when you're writing sarcasm, you have to be very careful. I love utilizing beta readers for this reason. You can specifically ask your beta readers. Go ahead.
That was the one thing I was going to mention is, so there's a big push in a lot of communities for sensitivity readers.
Oh, sensitivity readers. Yeah.
I want to offer you both encouragement and caution in this area. Okay. The encouragement is, if you don't know something about a certain group or a certain community of people, it is absolutely just fine to reach out to sensitivity readers and have them read your manuscript and tell you that you've got this area wrong, or that this area doesn't work exactly, or something like that, right? So that is fine. However, the word of caution is that there are times when you will get overly sensitive readers, sensitivity readers, and they can literally ruin your book. So if you're going to get sensitivity readers, do not get one sensitivity reader, get several sensitivity readers, and take their feedback as a group, not as individuals.
Yeah.
Okay, because the individuals sometimes will be overly sensitive, and they'll literally take the life out of that particular character. Okay.
Right.
But the flip side of things is you also don't want that character to be completely unrealistic and to really tick off the people, the marginalized people that you're writing about. So sensitivity readers, good idea. Same thing as critique groups, though. Use caution.
Yeah, so. I agree. And you can go onto my website and at editsbystacey.com, and I have a beta reader worksheet that you can use, or like a checklist that you can give your beta readers. And if you can create these things really easy. Actually, ChatGPT could probably help you put one together. But basically, get a list of questions, targeted questions that you would like your readers to have, so that they can stay focused. It will help prevent some of those blanketed, I didn't really like this.
Yeah, and give sensitivity readers the whole manuscript. Do not give them parts that you would like them to read. They need context.
Right.
Because context is very, very important when you're dealing with sensitivity issues. So if you're going to write this kind of thing and you want to do it well, and you don't have friends and know people in these communities, reach out to sensitivity readers, but give them the whole manuscript, not part of it, the whole thing.
Exactly. So, bottom line, are we ready? Bottom line. What's your bottom line here? And with this whole topic?
Most important bottom line is, if you can't do this well, don't do it at all. Don't do tokenism. Don't, and play by the rules. There are rules, play by the rules. And just be sensitive to people as people.
Right. So my bottom line is basically the same thing. Just write diverse characters because your story needs them, not because you just want to put them in there. And make sure that you give them credit for being the people that they are, and not and avoid those stereotypes and cliches that will be offensive to people. You want your story to be well balanced for authenticity. You don't want it to be a book that rips people out of. You want people to be immersed into your story and feel like they can escape their reality for a minute. You do not want them to be pulled out of the reality you've created into their own, because they're so over, your story is so over the top in whatever capacity. So just practice. That's my bottom line. Practice what you're doing. And like Troy and I said, get those readers to kind of like help you balance the parts that you don't know or that you don't understand, to help you navigate worlds that you may not fully be aware of or understand yourself. So that's my take on that. I hope this helped everybody. I hope that we got a good mix of information in there. But if you guys have more tips or tricks, or if you have some funny experiences that you maybe want to share, books that maybe have kind of done the over the top thing that you're like, yeah, like in this book that I read, I would love to call those out. But yeah, put them in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys think about that. But again, let us know if you have any comments or questions about this. If you want more information about other topics, we're happy to hit those. Again, like and subscribe. We're happy to have you guys here, and we're glad you stuck it out with us today. But we look forward to, again, we publish every week. We do these on Saturday. We drop these on Saturdays. So subscribe so you can stay in the loop and know when we're dropping our next one. Anyway, do you have any final words? Get your Saturday going. Yeah, get your Saturday going.
In one of the next episodes, so I'm going to spring this on you because I haven't told you about this yet. But I do have a guest that I want to bring on. So and I think I've mentioned this to you before, but Johnny Truant. So Johnny Truant was a big figure early in self-publishing. If you don't know him, go follow him on Substack.
Google him.
And stuff like that. Google him. He's a great guy. He was one of the authors of the Write, Publish, Repeat, and was a big proponent of the rapid release movement, and then kind of reformed and is taking kind of a different approach to writing. And so he's written a book that's called The Artisan Author. Him and I did a week-long, I don't even know what you want to call it, like a workshop podcast thing like a couple years ago called The Craftsman Author, back when I was with Plotter. And it was really great because we didn't talk about Plotter at all. All we talked about was a different approach to the author lifestyle. Well, and so, of course, I mean, when he wrote this book, it has a lot of the elements of what we talked about. It's called The Artisan Author, and it's a different approach to the rat race of publishing today. And it's a different thought process on how to approach your career. And so I want to bring him on, but specifically what I want to bring him on about is one of the things that he talks about in his book, which I think is really important, is how to do this if you're a newbie author. Because it's easy for me to say, I want to pivot and become more of an artisan author because I have a following, I have an audience, I have things that I can build on. Well, what if you don't have those things? What if you're just starting out brand new? Can you take this different approach to publishing? And maybe in this age of AI where everybody's trying to do everything super, super fast, just slow the down. And by the way, when we have Johnny on, Sid might work overtime on the bleep button because we didn't really censor ourselves on the Craftsman Author. We'll try to do our best here, and keep things family friendly.
Well, his Johnny book isn't even released yet. It's like not available until November 4th. I have an
advanced copy.
Ooh, I want to read.
I have an advanced copy.
Will he let me read it? Can I read it before we interview him?
because I told him we wanted to have him on the podcast
Let's
as
do
well.
it.
So he's doing a Kickstarter for it, I believe, starting in August. But we'll have him on within the next few weeks. If it's not next week, we'll coordinate with his schedule, and bring on somebody that can talk to you guys a little more about writer lifestyle rather than craft.
Ooh, let's do it.
Johnny and I think a lot alike. Johnny has
Uh-oh.
become someone who I would consider a friend. I'm sorry there's going to be two of us, but you put me on with your therapist friend. So anyway,
Oh, you're
so I
right.
think
You're
it's
right. You're right.
turnabout's fair play. I think
Yeah.
turnabout's
Okay.
fair play.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Johnny's got first of all, he's got some great things to say. I think he's got a great perspective on publishing and the way things are going with publishing now because of the fact that we've both been in it for so long. That's partly what gives us, like, we're not telling you the history of self-publishing from someone who studied it. We
Right.
lived it.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
it's a little
Okay.
bit different.
Well,
So, yeah.
I would love to read the copy, and then let's have him on. Like,
Yep, I'll send it
hook
over to
us
you, or
up.
I'll have him send it over to you. So for
Yeah,
sure.
hook us
Yeah.
up with that and set that up. So we'll definitely do that. So yeah. Well, everyone, thanks again for joining us in this episode of Pros Talking Pros, and we'll see you next time. Have a
All
great
right,
week.
take care, everyone. Bye.